This video about how to burn fat in easy way. After consumption of food with a high content of starch and sugars, concentration of glucose is rising up, and in about half of an hour it gets its maximum. What is actually happening? As a reaction to the high blood glucose content, pancreas secretes insulin, and insulin commands to fat cells to take in glucose from the blood. Then, like at this slide, insulin works like a key to open the door for glucose molecules, and glucose molecules get inside and get converted to fat in fat cells. If we will follow the standard or so-called balanced diet, we will get three main courses, three main times of food. It's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and between them some snack. And even at middle of the night, some people wake up to get some snack because they feel so hungry. Meanwhile, all this time, all the day and time we stay in increase insulin in the blood. Here presented experimental data measurement of glucose and insulin content in blood. We have 3 meals: breakfast, lunch, and dinner during the day, and then this brown color line represents glucose content, and insulin is the blue line. And dotted lines are the lines which represent lunch with high content of sugars, such as sweet fruits. We see that the glucose can peak very high, and then it drops very sharply. So first step to reduce time when we have high insulin content, it is to eat only 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Then at least we have shorter time when glucose gets converted to fat, and the weight is not growing so quick. So there is a difference between fat state and fasted state. In fat state, insulin high, glucose level of glucose in blood is high, and what is happening? Glucose is burning as a source of energy, but also excess of this energy, excess of glucose, gets stored as fat in fat cells. Fasted state, when insulin is low, glucose concentration in blood also low. Theoretically, fat has to be converted to energy, but instead our body using glycogen from liver, and the next stage is consumption or breaking down the proteins, which are muscles of our body. So, okay, some improvement of the diet will be if we will eat only 2 times a day and get the window for eating 8 hours. Then we will extend time when glucose is not converted to fat, and then the increase of weight, the fat accumulation will be reduced. So we have time of high insulin content here, and we have time of low insulin, and when the glucose is not converted to fat. Next step, even 1 meal a day and 4 or less hours eating window. So we mostly stay in the situation with low insulin content, and then we are not getting overweight, and even there is some burning of fat, but not enough, not so much. Because to really burn a fat from standard or so-called balanced diet, we have to go to extended fasting, and which would last a few days. Here at the plot we see that 1 day of fasting is does not change very much. The level of glucose stay normal, and the burning of fat is not happening. Only after 3 days we see that concentration of ketones in the blood is increasing. Ketones are the substances which are produced from fat and used as a source of energy for muscles and for other cells. So we see that after third day we have very high concentration of energy in the blood. So high concentration of ketones and a relatively normal concentration of glucose. So after 3 days of fasting, we feel ourselves very energetic, very well, and very optimistic, in difference from first day of fasting. So we see that to get efficient burning of fat, we have to go to the ketones production, to the ketosys, ketosis. We have to go here. But it is not very practical to wait 3 days and then wait in maybe 5-6 days. So it is not very normal. Why? Because during the first days of fasting, our body is consuming proteins from our muscles, because muscles to support muscles it takes a lot of energy. So and metabolism has to be reduced, and our body try to take muscles, to take proteins, and to consume proteins, and to produce glucose from proteins. So we are losing, in first days, we are losing mostly not fat, but we are losing proteins, and only then, after third day, we are getting to the ketosis and start to burning fat. So, okay, let's go again, and let's consider what is happening with our body and with concentration of glucose in blood if we consume only carbohydrates. This is a red peak. Proteins, we see that peak yet exists, that in 3 hours after eating, after food consumption, we have some peak of glucose. And theoretically, up to 50% of protein can be converted to glucose by weight. So 1 kilo of protein gets converted to half kilo of glucose, or 100 gram of protein gets converted to 50 gram of glucose. In difference to burning, to eating carbohydrates and eating proteins, eating a fatty food such as butter, whole butter for example, gives very delayed peak of glucose product in the blood, and it is very low in value, in magnitude. Why it is so extended? So why it is so delayed? Okay, let's consider that amino acids can when proteins are getting to our stomach, then they relatively easy can be split to amino acids, and amino acids are getting to our blood, and then blood brings them to liver, and liver produce glucose, and so that 100 gram of protein can be converted to 50 gram of glucose, and then we see this peak, and it takes only 3 hours to all the process. But to digest the fat, it takes much longer, because it's much more complicated process. So first we take fat, which is 3 glycerides. They has to be broken down into fatty acids and monoglyceride molecules by ferments and enzymes with help of bile salts. So what we see at this page, we see this molecule of fat, which consists of glucose and 3 molecules of fat acids. Okay, please pay attention that these fat acids have only single molecular mesatomic bond, only single bond between carbon atoms. And this means that these acids are saturated. Saturated acids and saturated fats are mostly animal fats. So we see this animal fat getting broken to monoglyceride and two amino acids, the two fatty acids. The bile salts consist mostly of folic acid. Folic acid is such a relatively complicated chemical which has OH groups, and then it works as detergent. So what is happening when these fat pieces are coming from our stomach to intestines, to then bile salt or this is this folic acid works as detergent and breaks it down to smaller pieces, to smaller, that fat can be converted to fatty acids and glycerol. Then these fatty acids and monoglycerol can be transported across the intestinal membrane. Let's look. We have this inside the intestine. We have this these cells, and so the substances, this fatty acids, monoglycerol, gets inside of the cells, inside. But interesting that as once they cross the membrane, they recombine to form again the fat molecules. Yep, yeah. So this is under microscope. We see these cells which absorb fatty acids and monoglycerides, and then what is happening again? Glycerol reacts with fatty acids, and we are getting fat. Inside these cells, phospholipids produce such such a bead of fat, small bead of fat, molecules of fat inside, and this works as a vehicle or to transport fat to liver. So how it goes? Fat go to liver. Liver produce ketone bodies. Ketones, the simplest ketone is acetone and glycerol. And from these substances, ketones can be used as energy, a source of energy by muscle. And from glycerol and ketones in liver can be produced also glucose. But all this process, all these conversions from fat to fatty acids and glycerol and back, and transportation to liver, and then to ketones, and then etc. etc. So it takes time. So it's actually 8 hours. It takes 8 hours to produce glucose from fat, which we consume as food. While amino acids can be converted to glucose much faster. So again, we come into this plot of fasting, and we see that only in situation of high ketone content, the fat will be burning, will be reduced efficiently. How it goes? But there is a way to make to simulate fasting. If we will use ketogenic diet, we need time to get into this ketosis situation when we have ketones in the blood. So fat is coming to liver, as we were discussing before, and then liver producing ketones. Ketones are used by muscles as source of energy, while muscles try to save energy, to save glucose for our brain. At least at first stages, our brain yet need glucose, and only later on, brain can use both glucose and ketones for its work here. And in this situation, so it takes time to get into ketosis. It takes time, minimum 1 week, normally 2-3 weeks. But what is good, muscle loss is minimal in this transition. So we start to eat very little amount of carbohydrates, like 5%, or it is something like 20 gram, not more than 20 gram of carbohydrates. And then slowly, we are coming to this ketosis. So the concentration of glucose in blood, if it was oscillating before, every time we were eating, like breakfast and lunch and dinner, it gets stable. It gets stable because our liver producing is as much glucose as it necessary from fat and from protein, and mostly from fat. Fat can be 10% of fat can be converted to glucose. It is enough. It is enough to function our body efficiently. But meanwhile, we keep the level of glucose stable. We have no hunger because it is the level of glucose in our blood what makes us hungry. If level of glucose drops down from this green level, then we have we're hungry and we are seeking to eat something, some sugar. But in this case, we are absolutely comfortable because for our body it is all the same to consume fat which we got with food, or to consume fat which is stored in our body. It is all the same, and there is no difference for our body how to use fat. So we are burning fat very efficiently. So if we will look at body weight in the situation of low fat and low energy, low calorie diet, we see that yes, weight is dropping, but not so. Then it gets stabilized. Why it gets stabilized? Because body tries to save energy, and what it is doing, it is reducing the metabolism, that slow down metabolism, and slow down metabolism. It is to produce glucose from proteins, from muscles. So we are losing, as we are losing fat, as we are losing weight, we are losing mostly muscles, not the fat here, in this low caloric diet. In quite opposite, in the low fat diet, we stay in ketosis, and weight is dropping because of we are burning fat, not muscles. Muscles also can be consumed if we're not going to for exercises, but not so much, at least not so much as for low caloric diet. And our metabolism is getting even higher rate, so we are actually more active than at normal standard diet. Interesting impact can happen with interesting phenomena can happen in the burning of fat. Fat cells are losing fat because it is used for energy, but they are not losing its volume. Interesting. We are not at some stages. We can see that our weight stabilized. We're burning fat for sure, but fat cells are getting even larger volume, and they are getting water inside. Then eventually there is no fat inside, and then boom, the cell collapsed, and then we have sharp drop of weight because we expel water, and then what is happening in weight, they can be solved. For example, at this plot, we see that at this high fat and low carbohydrates diet, there is a time when weight is stabilized, even grow a little bit, but then sharply drops. Yeah. I also saw such fluctuations in my body because first I lost weight from about 83 to 74 quite quick. Then it was stabilized at this level, 74 kilo, and recently it dropped sharply to 68. And I continue to lose weight while I do exercises, and my muscles is dropping, but not so much, not so much. So the conclusion is such that the ketogenic diet can be the most efficient way to burn fat. Of course, it has some disadvantages. For example, you have to eat, you have to consume more minerals, and like magnesium, potassium, and sodium. And because you always drinking too much water, you're always thirsty in such situation. You're thirsty, you're drinking much of water, and water is flushing all the minerals out. So you have to supply the salts, and I use magnesium chloride, for example, and I use potassium chloride, and I use sodium chloride as supplement, additional supplement up to 5 grams of sodium chloride per day to keep my balance. Well, but I am getting much more comfortable state that my body is more healthy and I have no hunger. And what is also good in a ketogenic diet, that I save a lot of time because I eat once a day at evening, and I don't eat at breakfast, or I drink only hot tea or some broth from bones, or just some broth to drink some salted water maybe, and then only at evening I eat something. And again at evening, even at evening, it can be some I can prepare my meal with a blender with few eggs and the coconut oil, and maybe some fish, and then I will make such mix, and then I can eat it together with some vegetables like tomatoes and salted cucumbers, whatever. So it is very convenient. It's saving a lot of time and actually money. So very convenient way to lose weight. Okay, thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe, comment, and ask questions, and like the video, because I will try to answer your questions with another video, and I believe that it can be useful for you to hear about my experience, how it works, what supplements I use, what the kind of food I make for yourself, and so you will not make mistakes like from the very beginning to getting into ketogenic diet. You have to take care about minerals, and first of all magnesium. I used to have deficit of magnesium in cramps or in muscles, so it was very non-pleasant feeling. So, but since I have recognized that it is because of magnesium, I got supplements, and I got much better situation, much better feeling. So I even if I make intensive exercises, I have no problem with my muscles. So thank you again, and have a good day.